Nik Kleverov is a storyteller, director, and AI creator. He started using AI tools back in the early days of 2022, and today he travels all over the world sharing his work as an AI filmmaker. He is the chief creative officer at Native Foreign, an agency elevating everything from brand storytelling to new innovative visual projects. Today we're going to learn about Nik's original work, his secret past life as a rapper, yes, a rapper, and see a film that he made with his son using just Luma tools. I'm really excited to talk to Nik, so let's dive in. Hi, Nik. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Jagger. Happy to be here.
Well, at this point, it's September 2025, and you've been a big player in the AI filmmaking space for a while. And if you had to guess, how many interviews, panels, speaking engagements do you think you've done about AI in film at this point?
This year or in general?
In total?
I mean, I think I'm at like 60 this year, so it's probably got to be creeping up on 200 total.
That's really impressive. Yeah. You're probably used to hearing a lot of the same questions, or at least walk in feeling prepared to answer sort of the same things.
Yeah, so maybe you'll shake it up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll try to. We'll try to. What do interviewers typically ask you?
Always about the future of both storytelling, but jobs and what this means, obviously, for everybody, moving forward. Get a lot of questions about education and how important it may still be. And is AI this magic button that just does everything for you, which it's not, spoiler alert. Then I get questions, of course, from time to time about environmental impacts, energy, things like that. And, it's interesting. There's actually been a lot of stuff that has come out that shows like literally watching TV is like so much more energy consumptive than making image gens and whatnot. But I think the TLDR is that it's a creative powered ability to, do storytelling and using the tools in the correct way, which is what yields these results. And that's kind of the message that I always try to bring out when I'm talking about AI.
Are there any topics or questions that you wish moderators would ask you that you rarely get the chance to speak about?
Ooh, that's really good. I would love if moderators and people could talk a little bit more about what they're excited about, because sometimes I do feel like I don't know like what's on the other side of the person. So, you don't know if the question you're answering is genuine in the way that, like what they're trying to get out of it, or are they trying to get a rise, or, are they trying to truly understand? Because like I can say what I'm excited about, but I also know that everybody that's interested in this space is probably some type of creator or has created at least, right? And so what would they want to make or create, or if they haven't yet? That's something I'd love to get more insight on, and sometimes I do ask people about that.
Well, I'm excited about comedy and animation, which ties pretty seamlessly into what you're doing with Critterz, which we will talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, you've created tons of stuff. Like you've made a bunch of stuff, and I've gotten to see some of your AI work, and
Thank
I mean,
you. Thank you.
it's exciting.
It's exciting to see people, especially from the traditional storytelling world, coming in, adopting the tools, bringing and making people laugh and bringing people together.
I would
So,
say that's something that there's not a lot of in the AI space right now. Like there's
yeah, I
a lot
agree.
of comedy. There's a lot of sci-fi, and I also am guilty of that because I made a film called Memory Maker that is very sci-fi and very AI. So I appreciate comedy and people trying to switch things up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the dialogue and the characters in Critters, the short film that you're working on is it kind of hits the nail on the head with that. So I'm excited to actually let's dive in and talk about Critters just because we're on it.
I think it was successful initially because it probably wasn't just like another sci-fi thing, right? Like especially early AI days when, everything coming out was like kind of a tech demo in one way or another. It was one of the first ones that just said, hey, we're going to make an irreverent, funny little piece that's a David Attenborough crashing into a Monty Python sketch and, see what happens. And I think that's why it was successful and why it somehow has like now grown legs that are now taking us to other places, which is really cool.
Cute animated spider legs taking us somewhere. Yes. No, I saw it on Instagram. I think it was it the end of 2022 or early 2023?
So we were working on it end of 22, and then we released it. We actually held the release, like it was kind of done, but we released it April 23 because we wanted it to put it out for the 1 year anniversary of DALL-E, which was the text to image tech that was used to create, the basis of the film. But yeah, we started dropping like teasers and whatnot about it around then for sure.
Yeah, I just remember where I was when I was scrolling and I saw it and I was like, okay, here we go. And that was at the beginning of when my curiosity started to grow about AI, especially as a writer, as a storyteller. So it felt
You're
like
an
there were
OG.
characters.
Yeah, you're an OG. If you were in it in 22, it's kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes when I get you asked me the earlier question about the panels and the talks and this, and sometimes I do still come on it and it feels so new and fresh, and I'm just like, oh yeah, because I've had so many talks where, when I started talking about this, you'd be in the room and people like didn't even understand what text to image was at all. Like that is where we started, and now obviously the collective society understands more, and we're all kind of catching up, and everybody's getting it, but. Yeah, I mean, when I think about it that way, like, yeah, it's been like over 3 years. So I've actually been on this track for over 3 years, which does seem longer than it does in my head sometimes.
Well, it's like 3 years is like 10 years in the AI
Oh, for
space.
sure. Like, and we've done so much, which is why I think the questions, or the redundant questions, or just the questions we're used to, we all kind of like look at each other. We're like, okay, well, let's answer this question. But you have to be respectful too, because you have to remember, like, there's plenty of new people that are just getting into AI today that have not heard about it, that don't know about it, that are genuinely curious. And so I'm not here to poo-poo on that curiosity. Like,
Yeah.
curiosity is the key factor of what it takes to be successful in AI. And like, I'm not here to dispel anyone's curiosity. Like, I'm here to support that and uplift it.
Exactly, exactly. Well, today we will get into kind of an overview, hopefully make it a little bit different, but also honor that kind of beginner's mind that a lot of people have about this stuff. Can you talk about the first moment that you saw AI in action, like in a film project, or something that caught your attention where you were like, aha, what was your aha moment?
My aha moment was definitely April 2022 when I first saw Dolly, which was text to image technology. Just obviously had never seen anything like that before. And as a maker, creator, filmmaker that's always been noodling away on things, the ability to just take something in your mind and bring it into visual instantly was absolutely mind blowing. And, that was the basis of the Critterz film. It was, creating all of these little critters that then were built out the world. And then we started actually piecing it together in a really traditional way. But starting to see all the early tests of video as well then after that was really fascinating and really interesting. And when I got invited to be part of the Sora Alpha Artist program, there was some time there before it was even announced that I was one of the initial 7 people using Sora, and we all had like our little demo films or whatever. There was a couple months in there where I was using it every day, and I was just like, oh my god, the world is not ready for this. This is so nuts. And like, I remember my mind melted the first time I saw Sora, because at that point, right, it just nobody had ever seen anything like that. So OpenAI has definitely had this incredible track record of just like blowing people's minds in these waves and phases, and then all these other tool providers, either catch up or in some cases, in some scenarios, surpass, right, the abilities. And then, so now the game is just keeping up with all the tools, getting to know what tools are good at which thing, how to use them in what sequence, what's the workflow, what's the pipeline, and that's its own whole thing. But I'm honestly kind of amazed every day. Like, that's what is exciting about working in AI, is every day there's new tools and new things that are being unlocked, and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's possible now. Let's try it out, and getting to explore that is incredible.
Certainly your background, your experience as a director, someone who worked in entertainment, kind of is helping you along the way as you're creating those workflows in real time based on the tools that are coming out. But can you tell me, like, before we got ChatGPT, before we got Midjourney or any of these tools, what were you up to in film and TV and video production?
Yeah, I like to think that it's been helpful. And actually, that's one of the things I get bummed out about when a college kid will come up to me and say, hey, I guess these AI tools mean I don't need school anymore, but I couldn't disagree with that more. I think schooling and education and getting really good at fundamentals is absolutely critical. I might be a hot take, and I know some people talk about college and how necessary it is and this and that, or film schools or trade schools. But personally, I think skills wise is extremely important, but also like your network wise is extremely important. I mean, I think we're all lucky in the early AI space that like we all know each other and we support each other and uplift each other and hire each other and do all this cool stuff when we're exploring together. But like, I think that's the best case scenario of what school is. Like, you meet friends, and some are lifelong friends, some are just intermediary friends, but you get to create together. And I think that collaborative spirit is so important. But I'll say in some ways I'm self-taught, in some ways, it's from schooling, but I've always been the kid with a camera that just loves filming things. If you've seen the film American Beauty, that was me in high school, like filming a plastic trash bag floating around like a little artsy kind of emo kid. When I was 10, I was like making my own short films. Actually, I think I made a feature that was like me as every character, and I edited it in camera, and I dressed up as like aliens or something. I would love to find that tape and remake it in AI or something. I think that'd be really fun. But I've always been into storytelling. My father was a notable artist in Soviet Russia who came to America for freedom, and that's a whole different story. But he tried to get me to paint, and I never really was able to paint, but I was able to tell stories and be creative in my own way. And so a lot of these AI tools are really like an extension of that. It's the ability for me to communicate with an AI system and start bringing things that are in my head to life. My experience, I grew up in LA, but kind of not like inside the Hollywood system, but I always wanted to make movies and wanted to get into it. So I just started PAing, and, I picked up trash. I got people coffee. Then I discovered what the art department was, and I got into art department shopping, which is taking photos of props. And then, you have to go to the 1 hour photo and print them out and say where they were and go back to the production office. And then I did art department on set, which is like furniture moving. And then, a little bit there, but camera department, a lot of it. And then I was always directing my own shorts, and then learned how to edit because I couldn't find anyone that would edit all my own personal things for me. Then editing became my trade for a while. And then I finally became a director, officially, and then a creative director. And then, so I spent a lot of time at this agency that was very famous for main title sequences. We did a lot of brand storytelling and a lot of main title sequences. And that firm was actually responsible for the first ever title. It was for 6 Feet Under. And the ones I got to work on, Last Chance U, Bloodline, I did the Narcos main title sequence. And so when you're doing a title design and a title sequence, you're kind of distilling the themes or ideas of a show down into a minute or 30 seconds or less. And I applied a lot of that to brand storytelling, which we do at this firm. We started Native Foreign. That's our agency. Started it 7 years ago. But you're also, it's funny, like the way you make AI stuff, it's with this kind of smaller group of people. Like title sequence is always like 6 to 12 people, right? It's like a dozen-ish people that are making a thing. And every AI project so far, except a couple that I've fully soloed out, has been like that same size team. And it's really so natural to me to work in that capacity and work in this like kind of small team of highly skilled people. Like you have a creative director, art director, designers, you have animators, which now the animators are kind of AI artists, vid genning things. Then you got editor, you got sound, you got post. So it's really comfy for me. And I feel like anyone that can operate in that realm is going to be really successful now because of what is possible with the tools. But I still think a team is critical, and I love collaborating with humans as well as with obviously the AI.
That makes so much sense with the background as creating title sequences, because those are mini stories. Like you said, you're distilling themes, feelings, emotions, and sometimes even putting in hints that later on in the season you kind of you can go back on. So it makes a lot of I see the connection. I definitely do.
I love Easter eggs. I actually put an Easter egg in my film Memory Maker, which we made once and then expanded with Wonder, and it was actually months before anyone discovered an Easter egg. But I put an Easter egg of the Toys R Us piece that I did also in that
Where
thing.
is it? Wait, where is it in the
In
piece?
one of the memory sequences, there's like one of the,
Okay.
you know,
Oh,
initial
yeah.
intro shots of the Toys R Us piece in there. Not
Mm-hmm.
like the obvious ones with the kid or the giraffe, but it was like kind of a different shot that was also in my initial Sora kind of demo reel. So I was really pumped when somebody finally saw it because I was like, wow, like there's all these comments and all this chatter about the film, but I was like, nobody has seen that thing, which was really fun.
That's brilliant. Oh, well, I'm interested in your creative mind, your creative origins, and what were some of your earliest influences as a kid, and do you still feel impacted by those today when you're creating?
Yeah, I mean, the museum was my church. Like my dad took me to LACMA every Sunday morning, and I've always just been into art and fascinated by art, and I love art. And I think I love it even more because I can't really do painting. So I'm very inspired by new forms of visual expression, which I think is really in line with AI because I think we're creating a new visual storytelling language that has to be rooted in traditional and fundamental skills and knowledge, but also there's so much more possible now. We recently completed a project for a client, and one of the most impactful things he said to me was, he said, you know what, this is incredible. And those three shots right there, I actually don't know how I would have filmed those shots. And yet you've created these shots that wouldn't have existed before. And that's really exciting to me as a fan of very highbrow cinema. You know, Kubrick is probably one of my favorite directors and everything he's done. I did go through a phase in my late teens and early 20s where I was really, really artsy. I really loved art cinema and Alphaville and all of these kind of super esoteric things that now I watch as just kind of a little bit being a little bit older, and I like those less. I actually like things with great story more, and I like the relatable stories and things that work really well. I think everyone's got to go through their artsy period, but I think culling down that artsiness into like, you know, from the title sequences and everything as well, but still being able to tell a great story is my goal.
What would super artsy Nick at that age use AI to create?
Just like insanity. I mean, the most crazy stuff, which I don't know, like, again, I have done some things that are really artsy and out there. For example, you know, trying to think of how to think about what my dad went through in the Soviet Union in the 60s. And I made this like spoken word song with my buddy Aaron. And, you know, we've had this song made for a while and I've always wanted to make a music video for it, but you never could. And now I've used the tools. It was actually all done in Sora to try to visualize what it was like through his POV, like being followed by the KGB and stuff in Russia, and like this really surreal fly through kind of cool vibey thing that is something, you know, young Nick would have made. And I got to make it like a year ago or whatever, right? And I got to make it as adult Nick, which is really cool because a lot of the things that I'm making now, I mean, they're ideas that I've had for a long time. Like Memory Maker was scribbled down in a notebook 20 plus years ago. It's just been sitting there ready to be made. And I wasn't able to make it. But now I was able to, you know, with the tools and a small team kind of put together this story that I think has been really successful in the AI space.
It really has. I mean, your film Memory Maker was a winner at Project Odyssey, and more recently, it was in the Wonder Studios anthology, right? Beyond the Loop.
Yeah.
And the film really kind of addresses this. I like it because it shows us this dystopian future of AI and robotics and technology, but more deeply, it gives an AI entity access and like an experience with real human empathy and pain and suffering. So when you wrote that idea down 20 years ago, did you think about how you were going to try to make it someday, or did the technology at the time just not meet the standards that you would want to create
Well,
it?
yeah, and it's not even just technology. And of course, I'm interested and I'm here because I'm interested in how technology can elevate and support storytelling. But at that point, there was just no way I was even going to make that movie, right? I mean, the budget to shoot that, I mean, unless I found a funder that was going to fund that, it just wouldn't have existed. And so The other thing is I didn't know anything about AI when I did that. I mean, general ideas, but not like I do now. And so if it was, of course, developed further as part of making it, right? Like we've developed more of the story around it since, and we've been able to incorporate the idea of, you know, humans wanting to feel like machines, and, what that really would feel like and what that really could do, which the point of that film is Dr. Turner actually gives, the full experience of humanity to this class of androids that kind of rule above, and it does destroy them in a way because it's almost like they can't even handle it. The actual human experience. It's like almost only humans are individually capable of, handling that.
It kind of reminds me of how at first, when you're starting to embrace AI tools, it also feels like that kind of overload. So, like with people who come from a traditional background in production, how do you advise that they kind of break free from the like inner, like rigid things that they're used to in productions? How do you advise people get into that beginner's mindset when they really start adopting these tools?
You do have to be so much more flexible when making things with AI. It's not the same process. There are similarities, and you're still approaching it through idea and script and a storyboard, a shot list, then trying to make those shots and then edit them. But things happen when you're doing stuff with AI. You might hit a brick wall. You have to try different tools. You have to try to rewrite the way you're thinking about prompting it than what would make sense. You may also, on the other hand, create shots or sequences, or be given ideas back that you never imagined. And then that opens up this whole new idea of, oh my gosh, like I didn't even think about adjusting the sequence for this to happen. But since that shot turned out so cool, I am actually going to do that. Now I'm going to like have this shot happen before this shot, and then they're going to do this and then that. And so it is being flexible, I think, is key. And I think that's why it's interesting. Some of the AI native talent, I'll just say, is really successful and really wild explorations because they don't get hung up on what they're used to doing, right? They're not upset that they can't put a 100 millimeter lens and truck right, and that, have super specific things happen because, yeah, the tools are still going through film school right now, and we're not there yet. But I think embracing that kind of fresh perspective helps people be successful in AI storytelling.
It's so empowering for the individual creator to adopt these tools, but at the same time we're seeing this, there's the studio model that's kind of being copied and pasted into kind of like AI workflows. AI as a means of making VFX cheaper. But do you think that is that the best use of AI, or do you think that there's another medium that exists here that we're still discovering?
For the first 10 years of cinema, cinema was just recorded plays, and it had to develop its own language. And I think we're going through that same period now. I think we're seeing a lot of things because that's what we understand and that's what we know. But bit by bit, things are going to keep advancing and changing. And I'm excited about what the future of storytelling and interacting with storytelling is. I think that's really where the magic is going to happen. In the interim, it makes sense that these tools can help studios find efficiencies in VFX and other workflows. In some cases, it is exciting because it could also allow writers to be less restricted by what can happen, let's say in an episode of something, right? Because right now, the way that a lot of TV and stuff works is like, okay, well, we know we can have maybe a few effect shots and this has to happen, that happen, but that can't happen because, well, that's going to blow the budget on this. Now there's a new way to think about it, which is, wow, okay, actually, sure, you could have this big, crazy, cool thing happen. Why not? And, maybe we can use the savings from that and actually do a couple more days with the actors doing this scene or whatever, So I think it is the right way to think about it. I mean, if you're looking big picture, it's certainly less exciting than just what is the future of storytelling and the new visual language we're developing. I think there's room for both. I think there has to be room for both AI native stories all these film festivals we have going on, I think is really important for the craft and just seeing what's happening and developing and progressing and pushing forward. And I think it's also important for studios to explore VFX augmentation and other kind of workflows around AI. I think the more entities that embrace the tools, the quicker we get to the future of storytelling.
I think about that all the time, about having to untrain myself from thinking low budget. Like I've trained myself to write from a low budget point of view just to increase the odds of what I'm creating. So for it to get made, because that's what I had to do the last 10 years. So to break out of that and embrace something that seems impossible visually is such a new way to be creatively ambitious. And I think that your film, The Somniloquist, kind of captures that, because you have so many impossible shots in this very surreal film. And can you talk a little bit about the origin, like the source content for that film, and why you built it?
I get a lot of cold emails, and one that I got was quite lengthy and name dropped some people I know in the AI space. And it's like, okay, this is interesting. And it was this woman, Pippa. And Pippa basically told me all about this guy, Diane McGregor, and she showed me a BBC article. He's the most famous sleep talker. And I started listening to the recordings of this, and they have such an interesting mid-century New York, grime to them. It was basically, this guy just said these crazy stories in his sleep, and his roommate started recording them. And when you listen to the recordings, you hear like street sounds and horns and beeps outside, and it just feels so real, which is just so fascinating that there's like 30 plus hours or whatever of this stuff recorded. She was like, I've been trying to make this project for a long time. I've been interviewing, his old roommate and this and that, and trying to figure out how to bring these to life. And I think AI is the way to do it. And I was like, you're damn right, AI is the way to do it. This is like the perfect use case for AI. And she had seen a film of mine, the dominant film, which is the one I mentioned earlier about, the POV film about my dad and bringing us to America and everything, because it's very artsy and dreamy. And so she was like, hey, are you interested in exploring this? And I, of course, responded. We met, we chatted, and I listened through a few of them and wanted to kind of start with one that was really interesting to me, which is about four guys on a Sunday that are kind of bored, and they get a newspaper, and then they all get swallowed up in the newspaper and they get trapped inside it. And it's called Sunday Paper. And it has that like perfect mix of Twilight Zone for me, which is one of my favorite series and shows, but also, had that kind of Mad Men mid-century vibe to it, and was able to really just have so much fun with the visuals on it. I do a lot of image to video now, but because I came up like Sora 1, which was the OG Sora was a lot of text to video. I made the whole thing with text to video because there's something really fun about using text instead of starting images to kind of see what happens, and it leans into the look of the model as well. And so to me, it feels like it looks like Sora, which is, it's like the artsiest one to me, of all the models. So being able to write out really lengthy paragraphs. And I got good at this when I did the Toys R Us piece, because I made the Toys R Us piece also with just text. There was no image to video at that time, which was very hard to do. The kid, and obviously the consistency wasn't there because it was just text, right? And I'm like trying to cheat it and hack it and make it as good as possible with where the tech is at that time. And so the idea of bringing this kind of story to life with the dream, it was the most natural use of AI. And then she actually got this Grammy-winning composer, Marius DeVry, to record like a custom score for it, and he made this like really amazing textural mid-century feel. So that was something that just came together really natural. And then we decided we need to actually just make a bunch of these. And so we have a couple others in progress now, for other dreams. And then we're going to be opening it up to other filmmakers to also, submit their versions.
Really cool. Yeah, I could imagine that just the sound clips of him talking and what he starts to vividly describe. That's such a good jumping off point for an AI creator to start creating images or text to video. That is really inspiring, and I can't wait to see what people create with it. That's very, very cool. Are there other documentary or like based on true events kind of projects that you'd like to use AI to work on?
We've been doing some recre stuff for actual documentaries, which I guess actually to your earlier question about, Hollywood studios and distributors and streamers, I think that actually is like a really good use case for it. I mean, ever since Errol Morris invented the idea of dramatizations in documentary, I think we all come to accept it. And it's part of watching a documentary, as like the camera crews aren't always in the right place at the right time. And so I think it's the perfect use case for AI as well, too, especially if it's something, in 1400 Cairo or a place where cameras didn't exist or couldn't have existed. I think it's a really great use for it. I won't say any specifics about what we're working on, but there's definitely some interesting docu-based or docu-inspired things we're doing with AI right now.
Well, I do want to ask a little bit about Critterz, which was the film we were talking about in the beginning. And, this is the first AI film to obtain copyright for the characters in the story, which is a huge milestone. So congratulations on that. And then for anyone who doesn't know, this is an animated film currently in pre-production and production. So can you walk us through the experience of that first iteration of the short film, and then tell us about how you ultimately remastered it, and we can see side by side how it looks basically a year apart with the same prompts.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe 18 months or so, but I think it was fascinating to see the difference in just how the technology had evolved in such a short period of time, and that's what inspired us to do the Sora remastered version. So the original one was created with all images made in DALL-E, which was, OpenAI's text to image technology that existed, actually predated Midjourney. It was like the first one out. So we were using that to create this world, but then we brought the world to life in very traditional ways, meaning After Effects, Photoshop, basically the entire Adobe suite, editing, everything, and then bringing Unreal Engine in to map the characters' voices and to map their faces and to be able to, match what the actors were saying with the critters. Then when we decided to remake it, we used Sora, and it was pretty incredible to see how the fidelity had changed and how we were able to get so much more movement and so much more shot variety just 18 months later. And then we got some really interesting conversations going with this company in the UK called Vertigo. And Vertigo had made a ton of films, and they were like, hey, what are you guys doing with this thing? And at that point, I mean, Chad, my co-creator on it, and I were just kind of like, well, we made this thing. It's cool. We like it. We remastered it. We did a whole festival run with it, and it's been fun. They're like, well, what about making this something bigger? And of course, in the back of our minds, it's always something we talked about, but, we would need like a partner to do it with. And they were like, yeah, we want to be that partner. And so we joined forces with them. We got the writers of Paddington Peru on board to create a whole feature film that is really, honestly just so heartwarming and about friendship and community and lots of really deep topics. But, our aim is to create a really great film, a family friendly kids film that's fun to watch for everybody, and use the latest AI tools to do it. So that's what we're working on now.
I can't wait to see it. Well, between Critterz and the Somniloquist series and Memory Maker and the Toys R Us ad, you've certainly been subject at this point to some, let's say, online hate. And I was curious to ask you how you digest that when it happens. Like, how do you metabolize the hate that people throw at you about this stuff?
I understand where people are coming from, and I get the concern. I also know, though, that change is the only constant in life. And so, there are no more map painters now for cinema. Like nobody's painting big, paintings that go behind, Will Smith and Men in Black or whatever, right? So things have changed. Those people have adapted, have changed, are doing different things. I think there are some jobs that will not change. There are new jobs that will come. And I think the jobs that are going to become obsolete over time, that those people are going to find new things to do, right? There's also going to be all these new roles that we need as part of this AI workflow. And actually, in our instance, we've hired more people than ever before because we have all these new things coming in. And I think I was really inspired by something Cord Jefferson said at the Oscars a couple of years ago, which was instead of greenlighting single $100 million or single $200 million films, let's greenlight 10, $20 million films or $54 million films. And I think that's where we're headed. We're going to see smaller teams being able to have more swings at bat, more chances to tell more stories. And in that, there's going to be all sorts of new voices that rise to the top and, become famous from some compelling picture or something that really speaks and resonates to people. And I'm really excited about that time because, even for our brand partners, we're getting able to tell brand stories and do brand storytelling for stuff that wouldn't have been possible before, wouldn't have been greenlit. And thus now it has been greenlit, and thus now it has created more jobs and more opportunities for more artists and creators. Like, for example, we just did this campaign for Virgin Voyages. They have 4 ships. Each ship is a mermaid that is drawn on the side of each ship, and that mermaid personifies that ship's voyages and the personality of the ship. And there's all this storytelling going on that's never been able to be explored because it would have just been like tens of millions of dollars to do something like that before. But now with AI tools, we've actually built this story system for them with these characters that they can use to tell any kind of story they want, both on and off the ship. And so, again, these kinds of opportunities and experiences are happening now. And I get it. And I get that there is concern and worry, but this is happening. So my suggestion, people's always like, look, just explore the tools, see what it means, see how they could potentially amplify what you're already doing in your day to day. Or if you truly think this means you have no more day to day, then okay, like, what does that mean? Like, we've gone through so many booms and busts. Like, we completely got decimated by COVID. We had to lay off everybody that was working for us because our business got destroyed. We were on the verge of signing deals and this and that. And then COVID just like made everybody go inside. We used to do a lot of experiential stuff, which means, stuff in hotel lobbies, screen activations, all this stuff. And that all went away, right? So like, we also had to pivot. And I feel like my life, I'm always pivoting to what is the next thing? What's interesting? What is the moment and how do we make the most of that moment? And so, I guess I also used to rap. So like as like a tall white Russian guy that used to rap, like I'm used to getting some shade too. So I have pretty thick skin. I get it. I've also like lost and have very strained friendships in some people in the film business from this, but I try to hear it from their point of view. I'm very empathetic to their situations. And what I would love to see is how we can all work together and, all use the tools to kind of lift each other up and support each other and find new ways to keep creating and to just keep thriving.
I was hoping we could talk about your rap career. I was curious about it. Um, do you plan on returning to music or rap anytime?
No. And, I think I learned a lot from doing that. And in some cases, I still use some of that. Like the film about my dad, it is kind of like me rapping on it, right? But it's like a spoken word rap. I learned a lot about music. I think music is so important for all types of storytelling. And so I really look at life as like a step of building blocks. And, each experience that you go through, you get learnings from that. And then somehow in some magical way, the most random thing you learned
Yep.
compounds on each other and then helps you in your next thing. So
Yeah.
I don't need to chase the past, I love to reflect on it and I can certainly be nostalgic, but I'm excited about kind of what's next. And I don't quite think that's me on the world tour.
Yeah. I did spoken word in high school too, and I think that,
Amazing.
man, do you ever think about like if that version of you had these tools, like what I would create if I had when I was in my spoken word phase and writing poetry, if I could pair that with AI visuals, it's not so much my identity today, but man, the things you could create. So, yeah,
Oh, like the 13-year-old kids that have these tools now, like there's just so much possibility. It's out of control. So yeah, I get disappointed when I meet younger kids that are like not into it. So for example, I made this movie Finn with my 5-year-old kid, and it was an idea that we were kicking back and forth together. It was a story idea he had, and then we just basically started making it. And he was involved in what the VO was and what the storyline was. And actually that was exclusively made with Luma tools. But that was a really fun project where I got to see my kid's eyes light up with what was possible, and like him seeing his ideas just start to come to life and come to motion. And so I think we're entering a whole new generation of creators that are just going to be used to like, yeah, well, if I could think it, I can make it. So why can't I think anything and make anything? And that's really exciting.
I'm curious to ask kind of a fun question. If you were talking to someone in Hollywood from the year 2000 about the future of film and TV and music videos and production, how would you explain AI tools to someone that doesn't have the language and can't picture it?
Imagine that anything in your mind can come to life in seemingly an instant, because that's what it is. It's not easy. You still need creative vision and creative direction. But I think if you have those ideas, anything's possible.
What do you think 10-year-old Nik would prompt into an image or video generator?
Probably a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now, which is what's exciting and why I love doing this stuff. I think I've become a bit of a, just a business person running an agency, and, Native Foreign is 7 years old now. And so I at the time I'd started AI tools, it was 5 years old, right? But even at that point, there's a lot on your mind. You have bottom line, you have projects in and out, clients, this, that. And so you're just not really spending the time being creative, even as a chief creative. And then once the tools got into my hands and I started to feel like a kid again, exploring and creating, I think it reawakened that part of me in a major way.
If you were going to finish the sentence, using AI for creativity is...
Using AI for creativity is an unlock, and it's a wild ride. You don't always know where it's going, but you always get to where you need to be.
That's inspiring.
I believe that.
Yeah. Oh, I do too. And I'm excited for, like you said, the next generation of creators, possibilities with brand storytelling. We're just at the beginning. So I'm so glad we had the chance to talk today. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. It's been a blast.
Yeah. Well, for anyone who wants to connect with you, follow you, see what you're doing, where can they go?
So I'm at Kleverov on most of the socials. I'm most active on, I'd say, LinkedIn, followed by Instagram. And that's kind of about it. I think I have an X account, but I'm not really on there. nativeforeign.co or nativeforeign.ai or nativeforeign.tv. They all go to the same place now. That's our company website. So check that out. And then kleverov.com, which is just my last name, has like kind of more personal stuff, like my personal bio and some other projects that I've done throughout the years. So yeah, find me there, DM me. And thank you, Jagger, and thank you, Dream Lab, for having me. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.